Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So before we get into the sketchbook drawing session, because we will be working in the sketchbook a little bit later, but I realized I never really did any kind of like overview or tour of the Inktober drawings that I did this year. So yeah, I did do an intro video, I believe like around October 2nd. So if you wish to see more about the sketchbook and my thoughts and opinions, I'll leave it in the description, but also check out that video if you wish to kind of hear me talk a little bit more about the reasoning why I chose this particular sketchbook for Inktober. So in previous years, I actually used, I think, a few different sketchbooks for it, or I've used loose leaf papers for Inktober. But yeah, let's just open it up. So this was kind of like the, oh, I didn't realize how oblong this face looks. So I believe I did this drawing for that video, so I probably won't go over this too much. But basically for Inktober this year, I only used the Pilot Color Eno in the color red, which is just basically a colored mechanical pencil that's quite easy to erase. And then I've also used the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, plus I use the Super Black Speedball ink as a refill. It's not exactly too comparable with the actual ink that comes in this brush initially, but it worked for the rest of Inktober when I did run out for my cartridge. But let's go through this because I've rambled enough. So day 0, this was my practice one. I did some other flowers here as well, and just some little doodle kind of little scratching and scratching to get a feel of the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. So day 2, I'll put the names on the screen because I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of a lot of the flowers and I'm not gonna try. So yeah, here's day 1. Then we have day 2. I feel like it was a fairly strong start. I was having a lot of fun. I really like the matte kind of black look for the most part. Day 3, it looks like this. We have day 4, day 5, so you're kind of more of a sitting. Oh, I should have prefaced this video saying that the figure in all of these drawings is kind of roughly based on Ohuhu. So these were based off of his most recent Instagram posts, and then as he gets other Instagram posts or other promotions that are happening, I kind of switched the outfit and the look depending on what was kind of current at the time, if that makes sense. So yeah. So he's kind of more like in a tracksuit. I do like this one. I just don't like the face. So we have day 5 and day 6. I do like the chrysanthemums though. They're just fun. And I think I like the values the most for this one. Day 7 and day 8. This one's super cute too. Because I think I just like the scattered look of like smaller flowers. And I think his face just looks cute. By the way, even though I'm drawing like these roughly based on Ohuhu, they don't really look like him at all. It just seems like some dude with black hair and glasses. But at least it has like some continuity for them all. So this is day 8. So I did do mostly black and white, but a lot of the shading also came from the red colored pencil. And then we have day 9 and day 10. I do like day 9, but also larkspurs or delphiniums are one of my favorite flowers. They're also the flower of July, so I often draw them for Ohuhu. And I had a lot of fun inking these because some of them I put a lot more effort in actually utilizing what the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen can do. And then some other days I felt very lazy. Here's day 10, so Dutch irises. Then we have day 11 and day 12. I kind of like this one. It feels a little bit more like, I guess like Sumi ink in a brush. Kind of fun. I like this one quite a bit. I just don't like his face as usual, but I like this because the composition I think is kind of fun for this one. Day 13 and day 14. So much more simple kind of looks, also a lot more white present rather than a lot of black compared to some of the previous ones. Day 15 and day 16. So just more flowers, a different look for Ohuhu again. So basic kind of white looking dress shirt, some black hair. Some of them I did add borders to just because I found it a little bit more fitting for the composition without just making it a person sitting with flowers. I think the border just helps kind of break up the piece a little bit better. This is day 17 and day 18. The proportions are really weird here. I'm not sure if I just sketched it. So, I don't know what happened here. I don't mind like the shadows, but the proportions are very off on this one. Face is a little funky. I didn't mind the flowers though. I think they look kind of pretty. Day 19 and day 20. I do like the composition of this. I did get to spend a little bit more time. So the difference between some of these is that in the beginning, I actually sketched out the drawings first for I think up till maybe day 8. And then I would focus only on inking on that day. But later on, I ended up sketching and inking on the same day, which I think made me feel more burnt out. And we'll talk about the time a little bit later because I was able to film some of them, so maybe I'll add footage here and there when I'm talking about some of these pieces. But if not, those footages might not even see the light of day. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. Day 21 and day 22, I do like this. I wish I shuffled it down a little bit, considering he's this close to the bottom of the page. Oh, I didn't write the days for these. So this is day 23 and day 24. Yeah, so day 23, day 24, Snowdrop and Sweet Pea. So we have day 25 and day 26. Day 27 and day 28. Oh my god, his face is so funky. We have day 29, which I actually also like this one. I think it's just cute. And then day 30, which is this one. So this is with the wisterias. I wish I did more silhouettes. I think that would have looked super pretty alongside with the red in the back. Could play around with something like this in the future. And day 31. Day 31, super simple, but I ended up not doing any kind of border or framing for this one just because I thought I'd just leave it quite simple and quite blank. And we still have the rest of the sketchbook for in the future if I wish to do ink in here. Because I've done ink in here before, like I mentioned. If I can unhinge this. I've done ink in here before, so if I really wanted to go ham and actually spend a proper amount of time on the drawings, then maybe I'll do that. But let's talk about the overview, and maybe I'll include some footage into this portion while I'm talking. So I don't know what's going to be on screen while I'm talking about this. So for Inktober, the first few prompts that I did, like I mentioned, I ended up inking on the day of, but I sketched like in a batch. So for day 1, I would complete it, and then I'll sketch out day 2, 3, and 4, I believe. And then, you know, for day 2, 3, and 4, I would just have to ink those days on those days. But then, you know, up to a certain point, which I think is up to day 8, I ended up sketching and inking on the same day, which made me feel a little bit more burnt out, if anything. So inking, in general, I think I took, according to my footage anyways, it seems like it was kind of more or less consistent across the board. It's anywhere between 25 minutes of inking to 35 minutes. So that's how long I take to ink. But if I have to include sketching, it can take an hour depending on how frustrated I was with the sketching process, like thinking of how I wanted to put the flowers with the figure, or how I wanted to frame it, or whether or not I was doing too many of the same things over and over again, which I am very much aware that I did, because I did thumbnailing. I did a bunch of thumbnailing for more than 31 days, just because I wanted to vary up the different kind of compositions and the framing and everything for Inktober. But my ambitions for Inktober just kept on dwindling as the month rolled on. So yeah, for the most part, I think consistently I can say I felt confident inking the hair, and I became lazy with the face, and I became lazy with the flowers. So I have mixed feelings about how I treated Inktober. I still think Inktober is a wonderful experience just because it is kind of nice to be able to kind of like complete a challenge, but you can kind of make it your own. So my friend who also used the same prompts that I did, I was always watching her Instagram stories because she would post it at the end of the day. And for her, she limited herself to 5 minutes and she only did them in pencil and she did them really small. But it gave her a little bit of that push to feel a little bit more inspired or wanting to do a little bit more drawing. Nice thing to do at the very end of the day. If you did a 30-day challenge or however many days you did for the month of October, do let me know. And some people did some days, some people did all days. I think it's just neat to hear about everyone's experience about a monthly challenge and drawing every day, because for the most part, even if I didn't do Inktober, I pretty much always draw every day, even if it's small. I don't draw all the time in my sketchbook, which is unfortunate, but I draw digitally or I doodle somewhere or finishing up a drawing, so I feel like it all contributes to a drawing at the end of the day at least. So I try my best to draw every day because I genuinely enjoy it. It's just sometimes either obligations make you enjoy it less or deadlines make you enjoy it less, or sometimes you just genuinely are burnt out. But yeah, okay, so now that we are kind of done with the overview of Inktober, I'm gonna see if I can pick my favorite from these. I don't know. I did think I had a strong start though, even though like I said the face didn't look like him. I do like this one a lot though. This one's cute. The other one I really liked is probably any one that has like the circle composition. So I do like this one, even though I think his face looks funky. I do like this one a lot too. And then the other one was probably the Larkspurs one. What day was Larkspurs? Also oh no, it's this one. I do like this one too. But you can tell that I put probably more effort into this one, so maybe that's why. I am just going to continue to use this in my sketchbook every so often. I think I learned a lot learning how to try to produce certain lines with the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. And it stems from me trying to be more confident inking with a brush in general. So I think I treated this a lot better than what I did back then, where I think I never really utilized this to its full potential. But let's move on to an actual drawing session, and I'll skip over probably to a voiceover so I can just take my time drawing in the sketchbook without any fear, I guess, of having to fill the time with talking or anything like that. So let's go ahead and do that. I think today I'm going to draw the boys from Aggravate. So that's the Sumeru boys in my Idol AU that I like to draw from time to time. And I might use water-based markers and to kind of keep the ink little theme going for the rest of today. Actually, where are my pens? Let's use fine liners. So yeah, I'm going to try my best to not be too lazy with today's drawing, so let's go ahead and get sketching first. Then we'll switch over to colors with markers, and then I'll switch over to this. So let's go sketch, choose our color for the color scheme, and then ink, and we'll get to, yeah, I think that's the plan for today. So let's go ahead and get started. So finally, Inktober is kind of just out of the way, and I'm super relieved that it's finally over. But we can actually start on the sketchbook session for this week. So for today's spread, I wanted to focus on sketching the Aggravate boys. So basically just the Sumeru male characters. And that's basically just Alhaitham, Sino, Kaveh, and Tineri. And I kind of wanted to draw them in the outfits that I planned for them before, so just mostly kind of like black, also kind of more mesh tops, jackets, and I wanted to play around with the color scheme a little bit. So probably at the very end of the sketching session, so like right when I actually finish inking, I'll show you guys the sketches from the other side of this spread, because I did a very kind of rough spread of just pencil sketches of the Aggravate boys, just because I was itching to draw more of like Idol AU kind of designs. So it's still the same kind of outfits that I did them before. So I'm basically doing that for this spread as well. My brain's having a hard time thinking of what I'm trying to talk about. So basically, water-based markers, inking. But before we do that, I'm actually going to be showing you guys the sketching portion, which I usually exclude in these kinds of either traditional videos or the sketchbook videos, just because whenever I start to use any colored lead on kind of just like bright white paper, my camera has a hard time picking it up. But also I like to prop my sketchbook in a way so that it's no longer being like horizontally flat in front of me, so it prevents too much warping due to perspective. But I decided that I will just take my chances and I'll just prop my sketchbook on the other sketchbook to kind of just angle it a little bit, and hopefully nothing's too skewed by the time I do the coloring and the inking. But usually I don't find out until I actually finish the entire piece, so hoping that it'll turn out. So for the sketches, I do apologize that Sino came out super derpy, but also super tiny. It was just poor planning on my part, but also I kind of didn't have a order of an order of where I was going to place them or who I was going to draw first. So unfortunately, I drew Al Haytham way too large in the front, but I ended up drawing Teen Nutty next because I knew I drew him too tiny on the previous spread, and Kaveh was not supposed to take up this entire space, but I made his pose a little bit larger than expected because I was actually going to put Sino below Kaveh so that I could just have two kind of like smaller-ish versions of them. But because of how I angled Kaveh's kind of body and where I cut off the sketch, I thought it'd be easier for me to put text down there. So I put Sino kind of squeezed in this little upper space, and I feel like it would have worked if I planned out the pose a little bit better, because I could have done it in a way that made it look more dramatic, and you'll understand a little bit later because the way how I outline some of my sketches, it would have looked a little bit more dramatic overall just because how they pose and they're seemingly all kind of like looking towards the viewer. I thought it'd be a little bit more fun that way if I did do that, but because I wasn't thinking about that initially, I feel like the pose for Sino is a little bit awkward and his face turned out a little bit patchy with the coloring, and I don't know, I feel like I should have done a better job. So I don't know, maybe I'll do Redemption on the next spread over, but that probably won't be part of this week's spread. So yeah, I don't know. I did have an itch to just use water-based markers for today's spread because I haven't been doing any like full color spreads in a while. So we're gonna revisit water-based markers and we'll do inking with the Ohuhu fine liners just to tighten everything up, but also just make everything pop, just because black tends to be the color that kind of makes everything stand out, if that makes sense. Okay, so now I have this scrap piece of paper. Also, I do apologize if you can hear my chair squeaking. It's squeaking a heck of a lot this week for some reason. I don't know if I broke something on it, but it's squeaking and hopefully it doesn't pick up on mic too badly. So on this little scrap piece of paper, I am basically planning out my color scheme. So there's a lot of color schemes I gravitate towards, but because Aggravate is very much Electro plus Dendro, which is 3 of them, I wanted to pick a color scheme that was purple and green, but I didn't know if I wanted a more transitioning color of like a gold or a yellow or something to kind of help bridge the colors so it's not too jarringly green and purple. Now I kind of regret my choice. I feel like I could have gotten away with just the 4 colors rather than the 5 colors. Sometimes when I'm picking colors based on, like, let's say water-based markers, because I feel like for water-based colors or water-based marker colors, you tend to get majority of midtones and dark colors and not so much any light colors. So whenever I'm picking color schemes, I'm trying my best to limit myself from picking colors that I feel like matches the character completely. So if I want to work with a limited color palette, I kind of want to think about having a color that's dark enough, so like my darkest value, or if my line art is the darkest value, I don't have to worry about that. But then I want to have a mid-tone and usually a lighter color, so I kind of have a good range of values. But I feel like for me, the lightest value actually is kind of the lime green color, And the kind of goldish color that I chose for another accent color is still competing with that light color, and I feel like it's unnecessary. So I almost always pick another color for shadow for the skin, which tends to be warmer. So I chose more of a tan color or more of a lighter terracotta color because I thought it'd be a little bit more fitting for Sino as well. But I feel like the gold just wasn't necessary, so I put it for Alhatham's outfit a little bit, and I put it a little bit on Sino's kind of like collarbone area, and I did it for Kave's hair, but I feel like I could have gotten away with just using the green, and that would have just sufficed. So I actually ended up liking the color scheme a lot more than I thought I was going to. So I decided to add more of that green. I become very nervous with using certain colors. So earth tones, muted colors, perfectly fine. Pastel colors, perfectly fine. Neon or very, very, very bright colors, I kind of struggle with if I don't end up pairing them with black or kind of a more neutral color that's on the darker side or something like that. And I was scared whether or not this kind of poppy lime green, and this kind of like, I guess is it more like a magenta color, and then we have our purple. I wasn't sure if they were going to clash too much, even though I knew that it was kind of more of whether or not I could balance the colors with the quantity visually rather than the colors themselves not meshing too well. Because like I said, some of the colors I feel like sometimes are just unnecessary whenever I do these kinds of spreads where I pick a limited color palette, but I knew some colors had to be present. So 100% for sure, I needed that lime green color. I needed the magenta color and the purple for sure. I feel like the skin tone that I chose for the shadows alongside with the gold were kind of unnecessary, because if I really wanted to, I could probably use the magenta color for their face, and I could have used the yellow and even mix a little bit of that magenta color, or not yellow, the green and the magenta color to do any of the gold accent colors if I really wanted to. But the thing that really ties everything together tends to be the line work, and I'm showing you guys in real time a lot of the inking process for Alhatham's just because he is kind of front and center and he's a lot larger on the spread, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see how I am kind of approaching the inking this time. So fine liners, I feel like I have an interesting relationship with them as well, and even though I feel like at times people think I'm confident with my inking or like they like my inks, I really dislike how I ink things like in general with fine liners. I feel like things look stiff. I get a little bit too anal about kind of like making sure things are connecting without like the weird little blotch of little ink where you stop your pen. I don't know. And I feel like I try my best to like flick the pen to get like tapered lines and all this stuff. I just have like a love-hate relationship with it because line art is satisfying to look at, and I feel like the payoff is great when you do end up doing the line art. And in this case, I am glad I chose kind of like black fine liner. I feel like with the brighter colors, it just ties everything together more nicely, because initially, if I didn't use the black, I would probably either use a dark blue or a dark purple, but I feel like they would be too soft against these colors anyways, so the black is kind of nice, and I tried my best to kind of hatch every so often where I wanted darker areas, just because in general how I planned out their outfits, I wanted them to have more of a mesh or darker overall aesthetic, if that makes sense. So more dark jackets, bomber jackets, dark pants, black belts, accessories with gold and a little bit of green or purple, depending on if you're Sino or the other Dendro boys. I don't know. It was just like, it's a nice contrast. I also think out of all the doodles that I did in today's sketchbook, if you can call them doodles, Alhatham is my favorite. I think Tineri turned out just cute in general. And then Kaveh and Sino, or I don't know. Sino's I feel like I could have salvaged, but I approached it wrong. And then Kaveh, I got confused on the line work and where my sketch was, because the way how I filled in with marker, I feel like I lost my sketch. So that's kind of the downside of using like a colored pencil for sketching as well. It kind of like depends, because I like using it because it's a lot softer and tends to be hidden whenever I do anything with color or something water-based or anything like that. It just makes things look a little bit more clean. But because of that, the trade-off is because it's so well hidden, I end up losing my lines. So I accidentally started to do Kave's hair. I accidentally misplaced where his braids were. I think I covered some of Sino a little bit too much. So his hair kind of gets mixed with Kave's hair and just it's kind of like a mess in that corner. So yeah, I think after I finish recording this voiceover, maybe I'll do a redemption spread. I like this color scheme, so maybe I can pick the same color scheme. We'll see. Because another thing that I took advantage of because of the contrast of the colors is that kind of like lime green color next to the purple. Because I was kind of treating the darker purple as my black in this sense, because it's technically my darkest value minus the fine liner ink, right? So because it's the black, if I wanted to do any kind of like rim lighting or highlight or anything like that, I decided to use that kind of lime green, which I think kind of helped a lot because I was able to add the lime green right next to the purple without making it feel like it's too out of place. So I was able to confidently use that color, because otherwise I feel like I wouldn't have enough areas with the green other than in Al Haytham's jacket. So I think I needed that to help me push to use the green a little bit more, I don't know, freeing, if that makes sense. Like not too meekly, and I didn't want to be too conservative with the amount of green I was putting on the page, because you even saw me later that I ended up putting a lot more of that kind of lime green into the background, just like all over the page, because I ended up really liking the color. And because the lighter colors, when you do back and forth little motion of covering a space, it becomes a little bit more solid looking compared to any of the mid-tone or darker colors, just because I feel like the streaking is just more prevalent and more prominent whenever you use the darker or mid-tone colors. So yeah, I just like that really kind of light lime green color, because the streaking, it just doesn't really stand out too much. So I added it in larger chunks everywhere afterwards. And you can see the inking for Sino. I think I kind of fudged the lines for his mouth. I don't know why I made it this weird kind of like open mouth with teeth showing. I think it was like initially just supposed to be open mouth, no teeth, and it was just like kind of more of a serious look. But I ended up opening his mouth, and I don't know if he's like, I don't know. I think it's also the hand positioning. Looks like he's plugging his nose. So I'll do a redemption sketch. I don't think I'm going to include it at the end of this video unless I have time before I render it. But actually, maybe I will. We'll see. Maybe I'll do the sketches and I'll include them tomorrow morning into this video, because I'll have tonight to sketch them out. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the inking process. Oh, no. I ended up also adding a black border around it, which is kind of why I wish I spruced up Sino's or changed the pose a little bit, so that maybe he was more side profile, so that it'll look more dramatic. Because me adding in this kind of black outline around the characters, it kind of makes it feel more, not theatrical, but a little bit more, I don't know how to explain it, comic book-y or like poster-esque, if that makes sense. So I feel like it would have been cool to have Sino incorporated better. So yeah, I feel like I am just gonna do a redemption sketch at the very end. And if I ended up including it, I'll put it here or somewhere, or at the very end where I'm saying goodbye. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and here are the sketches for today. And yeah, I'm actually getting closer and closer. I think I have 10 spreads left in this freaking sketchbook, and I'm excited to start a new one eventually. I'll talk to you guys later this week with another video. Bye!